at times the US media and perhaps in the US government's assessment also, it is being construed that Pakistan is not doing enough?
No, I think Pakistan has given its blood in this war. In fact, 7,000, perhaps there are figures of 10 to 12,000 lives that have been lost in this particular war. There are at least 2,000 plus soldiers of the Pakistan army who have lost their lives. It's almost coming close to what Pakistan lost in '65 war with India. So it's that serious as far as Pakistan is concerned. Look at the economic cost of it all. Look at the way that the international investors have gone out of Pakistan. Look at where the economy has come from almost 8% to roughly around 2.5% or so in terms of GDP growth. So I think the price that Pakistan has paid is very, very huge. Just picking up on the point that Ambassador Qazi just made, look, I think it's very clear to most of the observers that this war is coming to drawing to a close now in Afghanistan. There's going to be a peak. There will be a peak that will perhaps come into North Waziristan in the following months, which could actually include more number of drone attacks, which the US thinks will perhaps weaken the Haqqani group to a point where the Haqqani group may not be in a dominating position when they sit together with them for any parleys or discussions as far as the post-American Afghanistan is concerned. Now that could be their strategy. How successful can they be? For every such attack and for all the involvement that Pakistan has been making into this war on terror, Pakistan has paid a price into its own cities and homes in our interiors. You know, we had bomb blasts and suicide blasts, etc., etc. So what I'm really saying is that as we come to the close of this war, and there is this initiation of the process of discussion and political direction that we've taken, I think it is time now to put the military action a bit on the back burner, concentrate more on how to ensure that post-America Afghanistan actually stays a stable, functioning model, and that will only be possible not, and I must say this very clearly, I don't think it will only be Pakistan that will be able to ensure the stability of Afghanistan in the post-American Afghanistan. It will have to be a regional solution to that, and you'll have to factor in the Iranians, you'll have to factor in other neighbors there, and perhaps to some degree the Indians as well. But as long as the post-America Afghanistan is not inimical to Pakistan, it should be something that should be acceptable to Pakistan.
Right, sir. As we are drawing close to the end of this program, I would like you to, sir, reiterate on that point you were trying to make, because it's very important. In December, there's going to be a review of the Af-Pak policy, and this strategic dialogue must have provided inputs for that, sir. So what would be your concluding comments regarding that, sir?
Well, in the small, I'll just mention, one of the, if you have a ground invasion, in North Waziristan, there is a great opportunity, risk of course, as the Air Vice Marshal mentioned, blowback in our cities and a huge price. There will also be many of the Taliban or the Haqqani group and others are likely to move in force also inside Afghanistan, in the Paktia, in the Paktika, and in the host provinces, and there'll be an upsurge there, which has happened in the past also. So when the profile of the Haqqani group, the profile of the Gulbuddin group, the profile of the Taliban group is likely to increase, and I therefore don't see a ground operation in North Waziristan bringing about an end. Secondly, if you're out to weaken, militarily defeat a partner with whom you want to negotiate, a guerrilla force or a resistance force has the option of melting away until the pressure abates. They're not going to, just like America feels it's too weak to go to the negotiating table right now. Should they have a military sort of degradation of the Taliban, which succeeds in weakening them, well, it's going to postpone negotiations. It's not going to accelerate negotiations. And as far as the large is concerned, just as Vice Marshal said, we should have a grand diplomatic bargain. We should put the military thing on the background and lead with a political surge, bringing in the main parties, and the main parties in Afghanistan are internally the Afghan government itself and the Afghan resistance, which is led by the Taliban, and then you have the American occupation forces or the ISAF forces or the coalition forces, but they're led by America, so America is a major party there. And then out of the neighbors, which is the neighbor which is most influential as far as the situation in Afghanistan is concerned.
I'm afraid I'm running a little short of time, sir.
That's Pakistan. So therefore you need to have a quadrilateral process and certain steps to encourage that quadrilateral process, beginning off or working on a ceasefire, and a timetable for withdrawal, and statements and policies coming from the Taliban showing that they're willing to join the mainstream.
Right. As a conclusion, but let's not miss the point that President Obama is going to be visiting India in the 4th or 5th of November, and it's going to be an extended visit. India and USA had their own strategic dialogue, at the end of which Mr. Krishna, and I quote, he said that USA and India must go forward in fighting terrorism. Without naming Pakistan, he said, the epicenter of which lies in our neighborhood. So in your concluding comments, would you just cover what you think of Obama's visit to India?
Well, I think we shouldn't be unduly perturbed about this visit. It's a bilateral visit between two countries. We shouldn't also forget the point that India has an important role to play in the coming years. India is an upcoming economy. There's no doubt about that as well. So it's perfectly fine. You look at it in a more positive way. If President Obama is able to make a visit to India and hopefully bring some sort of a sense into how the Indian thinking is in terms of looking at the difficulties that they have in the neighborhood. It's not only Pakistan's responsibility to fight terror in India's neighborhood. It is as much the neighborhood's responsibility to fight terror in India's neighborhood.
Absolutely.
So I think Indians will need to review the way that they look at Pakistan if they want this terror to be resolved. And I think there's a serious reformation needed in the Indian thinking as well in terms of how they look at Pakistan. And that might actually be triggered by President Obama's visit. If not, one hopes that is what actually emerges out of it.
That's a very good point you made. So, viewers, with that we come to this very intense discussion. The topic is such that we could go on and on, but time is of the constraint. Therefore, I must thank, first of all, Ambassador Ashraf Jahangir Qazi for his very succinct comments, and Air Vice Marshal Shahzad for a very strong input. And viewers, we hope that you have enjoyed this discussion, because we conclude that the Pak-US strategic dialogue, we are not going to say whether they were successful, they were unsuccessful, because it's a continuum. It's, as our participant said, it's work and the progress. And results will come out not in the near future, but in the longer future. The important thing is that we must have peace in the region, and President Obama's visit to India should be able to contribute to getting peace back into the region, because we need it very badly. With that, we conclude this program. Thank you very much for watching. Please send us your comments at defenseanddiplomacy@ptv.com.pk. See you next week, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.